So I am really, 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 really happy to have Dorothy here with us. Kim just mentioned I have Saunders with a U and Dorothy Sanders without a U. So, so Dorothy, thank you so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. Um, so before we actually begin, as Kim mentioned, we're going to be talking about engaging older adults in caring for their mental health. That is going to be our focus. But before we actually go into talking to Dorothy, who is a wealth of information, I would like to just share some information with you. I did some research, and it says that research shows that approximately 20% of people aged 55 or older, and I don't know about you, but I'm in that category, 55 or older, experience some type of mental health concern. The most common conditions include anxiety, severe cognitive impairment, and mood disorders such as depression. So today, what Dorothy is going to do, who is, and let me share what Dorothy's position is. She is West Orange Vulnerable Population Outreach Coordinator. Did I get that right, Dorothy?
Yes, you did.
Okay. We'll be sharing some insight on how to, as providers, we can engage older adults in help in taking care of their own mental health. So, Dorothy, speaking with you, I was like in awe initially when we were pulling this together. I'm so impressed by your journey. And so I love for people to share their journey. What brought you from where there to where we are today here in the role that you do have? So if you could give us a little bit of information about your background, that'd be awesome.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here with the Mental Health Association of New Jersey. Um, as Kim mentioned, I am an attorney by training, and I practice for over 25 years in the financial and securities area in that field. And I spent a good deal of time in corporate law and regulatory compliance, helping people of wealth to accumulate greater wealth and helping people to manage their money in ways that are instrumental to them. As I went into semi-retirement, I felt that I really wanted to give back to my own community. And it was something that was always very important to me from the time I was growing up. I've always been very socially engaged and civically active. And I felt that I either wanted to work with children or adults. And as we came to the social justice movement and the reckoning with respect to George Floyd and the whole COVID outbreak, I felt that a wonderful way to be able to give back to the community would be to serve in a role where there's community outreach and where I'm working with more what they call vulnerable populations. They kind of moved away from that phrase because it's sort of what they call otherism. So usually it's considered at-risk populations or community outreach. So I ventured into the area first of senior livability, working with older adults in the West Orange community and helping the township of West Orange to receive certification from the World Health Organization and the AARP as an age-friendly community. And from there, I expanded that role and began working with more at-risk populations in response to the COVID pandemic. So basically, I did a lot of outreach and education and helping to facilitate whether it was COVID vaccines or testing or other social support that seniors and other population members would actually need.
Awesome. Wow. I told you guys why I'm so blown away. It's a long journey from being an attorney to here, but I see where it's all intertwined to really help you to have the impact that you'd like to have. So thank you so much for sharing that. You talked about helping the community to be considered an age-friendly community. That's what you just said, right?
Correct. Mhm.
Yeah, can you explain what that is for me?
Oh, okay. Yep. So an age-friendly community, it's a sort of a framework that was, I guess, came into being around the early 2000s with the World Health Organization. And as the World Health Organization in various countries came to realize the demographic changes and the changes in population and the aging, in particular the aging of people in the United States of America, we realized that there are certain things that are necessary in order to serve the needs of that older community. Bureau of Statistics and the Census, in the year 2030, there will be more older adults, over 60 and older, and then there will be younger adults. And that population of older adults has been increasing rapidly. So to have an age-friendly community, you basically look at the community and you think of things that are necessary in order to make it a community that's viable and friendly towards everyone, not only older adults. So the World Health Organization and AARP looked at the community and felt that there are 8 domains, eight things that are necessary in order to make a livable community for everyone. One is outdoor spaces and buildings. Another is transportation. Third is housing. 4 is social participation. 5 is similar to that, but it's respect and social inclusion. And 6 is civic participation and employment, if older adults would want to be employed. And 7 is communication and information. And then the 8th is community health services. Now, let me just give you one example, because older adults and younger adults oftentimes want the same things. They want to live in a vibrant community, but they want to have transportation. They want to have access to parks and areas and outdoor spaces and buildings. And they want a place where they can not only live, but they can grow older with their grandchildren and their children and what have you. So we feel that an age-friendly community really benefits everyone. And it's a way of kind of living together and bringing that vibrancy.
I love that. Thank you so much for explaining that. And I'm sure you had to go through a rigorous process in order to get that designation of of age friendly. It's not something that they hand out or just over the counter. So I'm really happy that you felt, or you all felt, that it was so necessary to really consider older adults and in the mix of everything, because so often older adults get lost in the mix,
Mhm.
and it's great when you have leaders who are thinking in that space.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And so I think one of the things, I feel that language is powerful, words are powerful. So, share with us, help me, what's the correct way of talking about individuals who are what I call mature individuals. That's my way of actually going around it. So, what's the correct term?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because for many years, older adults have been considered seniors, and the senior population. And many older adults prefer that terminology because they've grown up with it and they're used to it. But so oftentimes baby boomers and some of the younger spectrum of the of the older adults don't really like the word seniors, and they prefer to be called older adults,
Hmm.
or, as you're saying, mature adults, some of whom
Hmm.
may or may not be mature. But so right now, I think that the prevailing terminology is older adults. But it's interesting because we are not, and I'm certainly in that group, but we are not kind of our grandparents' vision of older adults. We do things our own way. Oftentimes, we're still in the workforce. We're still contributing. We're still volunteering. We're still vibrant. And it's important that the media comes to kind of accept us that way. We oftentimes, you might have seen in the past, and to some extent today, pictures of older adults with the kind of gray hair up in a bun with the glasses, and maybe with other things that kind of signify olderness. But these days in New Jersey, especially where we have a movement afoot to make the representations of older adults actually reflect what we as a group actually look like.
Thank you for that, because I can't go with the senior. Sorry, ain't got there. I'm not there as yet. So I'm an older adult.
Right, right.
I'll embrace that one. So, You talked about, thank you for clarifying that. One of the things that when we were talking, you talked about aging my way, and I think you kind of alluded to it when you were just giving the explanation. So could you go a little bit more into that for me? What is aging my way?
Right, yes. Aging my way is the older the Older Americans Act and the Older Americans uh, has an annual event. And typically there's a theme that goes along with Older Americans Month, which is actually in the month of May. And this year, the theme was called Aging My Way, because it's important for people to realize that we are a new breed. We're not, again, our grandfathers, our grandparents' generation. We're aging our own way. We're doing things differently. We're breaking molds. We're more actively involved. We're more engaged in intergenerational sorts of things. So aging my way is basically how you want to be perceived. And age, as they always say, age is just a number. I think it was, I don't know, they say it was either Bob Hope or Satchel Paige who said, my real age is the age that I would be if I didn't know what year I was born. You know,
I like
so
that.
oftentimes you feel, I mean, for me personally, some days I feel 40, some days I feel 50, other days I feel 21. So it depends. Sorry, it's the way that you want to be perceived and the way that you're aging. And there should not be barriers or restrictions on what it is that you want to do, whether that's in your work life or in your playtime. Everybody should have the right to age their own way.
I love that. I love that. And when you were talking, I'm like laughing to myself because, sometimes I feel like 20, sometimes I feel like a teenager, but when my body tries to do the things at the age, my body's like, remember, remember.
But it does remind us from time to time.
Yeah, but up here, I am as young as they come, but sometimes my body just kind of like, Faith, just remember where you
Mhm.
are. So,
Right,
but
right.
that's awesome though, that aging my way, and it gives people ownership and empowering individuals,
Mhm,
to say as to that, normally back in the day, like when my grandmother's time, even my mom's, when you talked about older adults, seniors, we saw envision this person who could just sat around and took care of the grandchildren, and
mhm,
they didn't have a life, in a sense, and that was okay, and that's still okay if that's what somebody wants to do. But again, the bottom line, I like to think of aging my way. Part of this is really helping people to choose how they want to live this next phase of their lives, and helping them to be able to do that. So that brings me to my next question. Earlier, you gave us the livability domain, the eight of
mhm,
them,
mhm,
and I'm going to ask you to repeat them again. But
mhm,
don't mind that, and I have a reason why I'm doing that. But while you're sharing about that, I want you also to think about why is it so important for service providers to be aware of these eight domains
mhm.
and how they can actually be of support to individuals.
And
Right.
those
Okay.
8 domains are outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, housing,
Mm-hmm.
social participation, respect and social inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
civic participation and employment,
Mm-hmm.
communication and information,
Mm-hmm.
and the last, community and health services. And they're all very, very important. And sometimes in some communities, you may elect to focus on some more so than others as you devise an action plan for your community. For example, in the township of West Orange, our mayor here and the town council was extremely supportive of the community engagement and the age-friendly initiatives. I mean, everyone had to be on board with that as a part of the application process to the AARP and the World Health Organization. And what it does is it helps you to look at things through a new lens. If you're a service provider or if you're the municipal government, it helps you to look at things with the lens of, okay, how can this benefit our older adult population? How can this benefit the township? For example, if we look at traffic lights, and oftentimes traffic lights, you'll have like maybe just enough time to get across the street, especially if you're an older adult. All right. So maybe you need to kind of factor in older adults could possibly need more time. Maybe they're using a walker, a stroller, or a cane. But the same is true of younger adults who may have toddlers along with them, who may be pushing a baby carriage, who may be otherwise engaged in a difficulty of walking or maneuvering across the street. So it's not just something that benefits older adults, but it can also benefit younger people also. But the key is to look at everything that you do in that township or as a service provider with a lens of older adults and how it can impact various people.
Wow, that's a great example because I never even thought about that in
Mhm.
terms of the time that it takes someone to cross the street, that maybe you need longer time to accommodate the groups that you just identify.
Exactly.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Wow. One of the things that I was thinking while you were talking through or sharing the eight domains, I was thinking that they're kind of interrelated too. Many of them are interrelated. Respect, home, transportation, all of these things are interrelated. So in order to be able to even help someone in terms of employment, community and health, we need to respect them. We need to respect their wishes, right? And
Hmm.
so it to me it all comes together in not just separate. They're not independent of each other. They're interdependent, and interdependent. So what's your thought on that?
Oh, you're absolutely correct. I mean, they're all interdependent, and it's also interesting because they're also intergenerational. I mean, because you hear so many younger people who say, "Oh, well, I want respect," or "that person did not respect me," or what have you. It's something that we all want, no matter what age we are. Um, and we often find that working with older adults as well as combining some collaborative efforts with older adults and, for example, high school students or older adults and college students, that works extremely well because each have an opportunity to learn something from the other.
Mm,
Here in West Orange, we had a wonderful project last year, which we called Legacy of Love. And
mm,
it was a letters that the seniors, the older adults wrote to high school students aged like 14 through 18. And it was right in the thick of COVID. And everybody, we were all dealing with this difficulty, this whole loss, and all this stress. And we wanted the older adults to share some of their experiences and some of the guidance that they had in going through difficult times, whether it was difficult financial times, World War II, other wars that happened, financial downturns, or just personal difficulties, and give the younger people some nuggets and some strength and some guidelines and some strategies for how they might navigate through those difficult times. And it was beautiful. Ultimately, we had about 15 to 20 older adults aged 55 through 92 who wrote one-page letters to the high school students. And it was designed sort of out of the idea of a lotus blossom. And the lotus blossom emerges from muck and mire and dark waters to evolve into such a beautiful, beautiful flower. And it's interesting because the students really enjoyed it. They shared it with the Board of Education. It was on the Board of Education website. And now this year, the students have elected they'd like to write back to those older adults because it was such something that was so important to them and it meant so much. Sweet.
that's awesome. So these are great initiatives to bridge the gap, the
Mhm.
generation gap,
Exactly.
because both can learn from each other, experiences. That's really, really awesome. You brought up a topic of COVID. And although I don't even know where we are as it pertains to that, but I know I can't imagine that what that was like in as especially in your role, trying to help individuals, older adults in the community stay connected, etc. During those dark times, as we you
Yes.
just mentioned. How based on your experience, how are people now today with what's happening, with COVID?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with COVID, I mean, fortunately, we've certainly turned a corner where we're not seeing nearly as many deaths and hospitalizations as we did before. And now that we have the vaccine and the boosters, a part of my role has been to increase the number of uh, vaccination uptake, where people would actually get vaccinated and get the boosters. And we've done very well. I think the country has, but we're still, need people to get those boosters, especially as the fall months kind of right around the corner. And COVID has already the numbers have started to increase somewhat, but again, not with the same degree of devastation.
Hmm.
But that period was such an incredible time of loss, and loss in so many ways. Sort of not only loss of health, but loss of loved ones, loss of your personal individual freedoms in terms of, wearing masks and social distancing and inability to go out like you would have otherwise, and loss of the routines that you once had, things that are really important to people, they no longer had, and loss of wonderful events that you would have been able to share. Probably many people on this call were unable to attend or to the weddings or graduations or family gatherings, unable to actually attend funerals, for example, of your loved ones, and the loss of that physical activity and that independence. So I think people, now that we have turned that corner, I think we all can, it's a sort of a collective suffering that we all kind of went through, which sometimes people have defined as kind of a post-traumatic stress disorder. And as we come to the what we call the new normal, I think it's important to re-engage and to really understand that our emotional health is something that's very, very important. That was a time, as you mentioned, Faith, not only in terms of like loneliness and isolation, but depression, and for older adults, also loss of cognitive skills. And some of those things are are continuing to exist, whether it's because of sort of long COVID or just the loss of cognitive skills, where people haven't really fully emerged out of their cocoons to get back into the new world and the new normal. So a part of what we've done in West Orange with the health department, as well as the senior services group, has been to try to engage older adults and help them come to reassemble. We had a wonderful musical rendition. We have a couple of very talented artists in this community who performed the first spring right after the COVID numbers started to decrease. And they performed out in front of one of the senior residence buildings. And several seniors came downstairs into the open courtyard, and they were just thrilled to be back among each other. And there were several people who you could look up the 8 stories and you see them kind of at their windows clapping and swaying to the music, just so thrilled to engage again, because that's basically, I mean, they look at sort of belonging as one of the human needs. We know we need food, clothing, and shelter, but now their psychologists say that they're coming to realize that the need to belong is just such a human need that's so very critical.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. So, Dorothy, in your opinion, what are some of the ways that service providers can can engage individuals, older adults? We're talking about people are emerging now from the COVID in their own shape or form, but as service providers, what are some of the ways that they can we can engage older adults, and what are some of the things that maybe need to facilitate that engagement? I don't know if I'm being clear.
Yeah, no, you are. And that's just an absolutely a great, great question, because that's what we've um, asked ourselves. We try to figure out what is the best way to try to engage people. And one of the things that we found is oftentimes go to the source and ask. So we've done surveys, whether it's uh, Survey Monkey for those people, seniors who are adept at technology, and also just going out into to the community and asking people what it is that they want and what it is that they need and things that they would like to do. And oftentimes we'll have suggested responses, but then also allow for space for individuals to write in what they feel is important to them. And you might do it by way of focus groups and sitting down and having conversations, or visiting different civic and social organizations at their monthly meetings or their quarterly meetings. And it serves a particular purpose because we talked about one of the domains being respect and social inclusion, and another being social participation. Well, the idea is to let them know that we're listening to them and that we want to hear what they have to say and to value their opinions and to act on their opinions. I mean, oftentimes for service providers, we feel that we may know what people need. And to some extent, yeah, we do. We attend seminars and speak with professionals and other people to try to understand that. But sometimes you have to actually go to the source and find out what is most important to them. I mean, sometimes it has to do with just engaging in nature, going out for a walk, taking on a new hobby, or learning something new, what they call sort of active learning. Rutgers University has and it's a center that opened in New Brunswick in 2019. And then they had to close down because of COVID. And then they did a lot of their teaching and their classes online. But they found that one of the best ways that you can really engage older adults is by helping them to learn something new and helping others to teach something new. So many of their students have now also become teachers as well. But it's it's doing things that you enjoy doing, and continuing to focus on those, and participating with your friends and family and connecting with those people, reading a book, listening to music, connecting with your pets, and actually playing, which is something we don't do enough of. Whether it's playing in the garden, in the dirt. We have a senior garden here, which has more people than ever before are on the waiting list, because it's so interesting. The seniors say, well, gee, not only do I have an opportunity to use my hands and actually grow something and see that creation, but it also is like aerobics, because I gotta, reach over my tomatoes to get to my peas and to do this, that, and the other, as well as the social engagement of working with other people. And we work with some of the Rutgers master gardeners who assist us in that.
Awesome, awesome. So it takes a village, put it that way, you
Mhm.
know? And what I love that
Absolutely.
you just said, Dorothy, was the fact that um, it's not only about getting information and acting on it. I feel it's about engagement also is empowering people to be a part of that.
Mhm.
So they can take an active part in the implementation of whatever we're putting together, right? So it's not that
Absolutely.
we're not doing it for you. You are part of doing it for yourself. Put it that way.
And that is so very, very true. And it is very rewarding for people to be able to do that. For example, we talked about intergenerational, and one of the programs that we had in West Orange was at one of our senior residence buildings. We worked with the high school students who would come in 2 times a week to help the older adults with technology, and we called it Technology 101. So we assisted them, believe me, the young high school students know far more about social media and technology than I do. So they were actually the instructors in that class. And anyway, they helped the older adults to learn how to use the telephone, how to surf the net, how to use Facebook, how to engage. And this was just literally months before COVID started. And it was great because several of the older adults who had never used Facebook before started using it. And that turned out to be an excellent way for them to keep in contact with their family and friends. They had never really learned how to use the computer to shop for groceries. And that proved to be something that was just absolutely critical during the months of COVID. I had one wonderful gentleman who came to the class, and he was so excited, and he told me that he got a Facebook message from his granddaughter, and she said, "Grandpa, is that you? How did you get on Facebook and social media?" And it was so cute. And the older adults feel just so happy and so proud that they've been able to do it. Then, as a result, a couple of their children wound up purchasing like little computers for them. Now that they saw that their parents were engaged in it, they wanted to participate more. So
Awesome, awesome. There is so much richness in this whole process of
mhm.
engaging older adults in what we're doing, not in terms of just gathering information, but really have them put input. These are people who have so much wisdom based on their years of experience. And it's I think as even providers, we're missing out if we don't engage or we don't really incorporate older adults in our process. There's so many older adults who would love to be part of our volunteer for some of our programs and to
Absolutely.
be there to support. And it helps in two ways. It helps sometimes we are short-handed and we can't do everything that we need to do. But on the other hand, it's bringing in this wealth of knowledge, wisdom into our programs that can actually help us to grow in leaps and bounds beyond what we could ever imagine.
Right, that's absolutely true. I mean, when we started tapping into the community, it was amazing the skills and the resources that exist. I mean, people who may be retired, but they had, expertise in newsletter writing or in terms of uh, even crocheting and sewing. We had several older adults who came together and they actually began sewing masks for us that we were then able to distribute within the community. I mean, there's a lot of talent and wisdom from their careers and really just some lifelong experiences. Sometimes just the opportunity to kind of sit down and talk to someone with a younger adult or adults among themselves, where you're really able to learn so much from each other. It's great. And if you don't ask for it, then oftentimes older adults think that you're not interested in them or that you don't want it. Or sometimes they'll start off by saying, "Oh, there's nothing that I can do to help." But as you talk to them and as you tease it out, they realize that yeah, they're actually very, very talented. They can be very helpful in so many ways, and they enjoy the ability to give back and to assist.
So true. That is so true. Dorothy, time goes by when you're having fun. This has been such this is what has been awesome. Thank you
Oh,
so much for actually coming on and actually sharing this wealth of information with us. Do you have any closing words for our providers or anyone who is listening? Or
yeah. I think in closing, I would just say, I think we all have to pay it forward. And I think that we all continue to sort of stand on the shoulders of giants, people who came before us, whatever race, whatever hue, whatever shade. I think it's really important for us to realize we did not evolve here on our own. We didn't get here on our own. So it's important to give back. And, sometimes initially you may feel like, well, there's nothing that I can do or nothing that I can give. There's always something that you can give, and it's something that is so important. So if we just have a little grace towards ourselves and grace towards each other, and all try to work together to improve the community that we're in and the entire planet, because we're all here working to make it better for not only ourselves, but for the future generations.
awesome. What a wonderful way of actually ending. Thank you so much again, Dorothy. I
Oh,
appreciate
thank you.
this.
It's my pleasure.